all of the honorees today are either immigrants or refugees to this country. Just like Representative Tom Lantos was. Friends, we live in times during which it's easy to fall into despair. And as a human, first and foremost, I'm not immune to that instinct. The day after the shootings in Southern California, I tweeted out the following message: that the names of the shooters are Muslim is embarrassing enough. That they targeted people with disabilities is devastating. I am ashamed. Now, many responded to my tweet saying, Irshad, there's no need for you to be ashamed. You've spent your adult life teaching moral courage, which means doing the right thing in the face of your fears. And while I appreciated those words of kindness, I must confess they were cold comfort. Because the more violence that is committed by my fellow Muslims, the less we think about, let alone hear about, those brave, beautiful, and bold souls who also inhabit my faith of Islam. And so this morning, I'd like to introduce you to just a few of those souls by telling you a couple of stories. About 4 years ago, on my book tour for my second book, Allah, Liberty, and Love, I was giving a talk at an Islamic community center in the second largest city in Indonesia, which, as many of you know, is the largest Muslim majority country in the world. And several hundred young people came out to hear me speak. But to our complete surprise because the doors of the community center were locked, about 20 minutes into the talk, we heard roaring motorbikes crashing through the gates. And on those motorbikes were violent Islamists, cowards, in fact, because they came wearing riot gear, helmets, and carrying iron crowbars and swinging them at everything they could hit, from computer monitors to people's heads. In the 2 seconds that everybody had the opportunity to react, many fled. We are human. But about 10 stayed. And I remember looking at one of them, a young woman, not much further than this woman in red from me. And she nodded her head this way. And I nodded my head to her, as if to say, "Are you ready?" And she indicated she was. And when she nodded her head, the others, who were hesitantly sticking around, stayed put. And within a few seconds, they heard the thugs on their motorbikes yell, "Where is Manji? Where is Manji? In Bahasa in Indonesia, in the language of Indonesia. And at that moment, those who stayed, mostly women, I might add, jumped on top of me, knowing that if those criminals understood that my body was underneath theirs, their bodies would become corpses. Many of them were taken to the hospital within 15 minutes. Some sustained very serious injuries. Others are still receiving therapy for post-traumatic stress syndrome. But the story that made international news was, of course, the story of the attack. So much so that Lady Gaga, who was to have held a concert in Jakarta the next week, canceled as a result of this incident. Little did she know that if somebody like me could be protected by 8 to 10 people who cared deeply for the cause of reform within our faith, she, Lady Gaga, would have been protected by her tens of thousands of fans. But she didn't know that, because the story of the courage of these few people went relatively unreported. Their courage is not as exceptional as it may sound. Not so long before that, I was in Amsterdam, also giving a talk at the most popular community center in that city. And suddenly, about a dozen young men burst through the doors, these unlocked, raised their black flag, and shouted an order to execute me. It turns out that this group, known as Sharia for Belgium, had actually exploited the open borders of Europe and come into the Netherlands strictly to create havoc. Many of them came from the same neighborhood as the most recent Paris attackers. But I didn't see them, for whatever reason, call me naive, call me reckless, call me anything. I've been called many, many things in my lifetime. It wouldn't surprise me what you call me, but I didn't see these guys as anything but the clowns that they acted as. And so I blew a kiss to them. And I told them that I love them and that Allah does too. And they didn't know what to do with that. They had no clue. Some of them took their seats. Others continued to yell. But because I didn't run away, neither did the supporters who were there for the reason that this event was being held, to seriously discuss the issues facing us as a world. And in fact, not only did the supporters stay, but much like those 8 to 10 people in Indonesia, these 40+ people created a ring of grace around me, a shield of protection, so that again, if the terrorists were to get to me, they would have to get through them. The point is that when you step up for what you believe in a nonviolent way and do so for the greater good, you role model the possibility of positive change. You show other people what is plausible. And so, and that's applause for them, not for me. Let's remember. And so I leave you with this question. What do you believe so passionately? What do you love so much about life and wonder and discovery and service that if you had to face backlash for it, you could and you would? Not everybody is able to answer that question honestly. More of us than we give ourselves credit for, however, are. And I thank the Lantos Foundation for seeking out those people. What I've come to learn about such people is simply this. They're rare, but they're there. Thank you for finding us.